One of my rules of thumb in life is that when a report comes out that tells me something that just immediately uh, touches me in a way that confirms all my priors, I get a little suspicious. If it's particularly in a moment where there's something going on in the world and research comes out relevant to that moment and it tells me exactly what I wanna believe, I'm like, there's probably a problem here. So, for example, the other day, someone came out with a report and Doge has uncovered that USAID bought Chelsea Clinton a vacation home in the Caribbean. And my immediate suspicion was this has got to be too good to be true. We're at a moment where there's grand conspiracy that the elite in this country have been living off the system. They've been accumulating wealth at taxpayer expense, and suddenly comes someone claiming Doge has found proof that USAID paid for Chelsea Clinton's vacation home in the Caribbean. If it's not true. Of course, it's not true, but it got out there on social media, and a lot of people on the right were like, this is telling me something I want to believe at a moment where we're having this conversation. It must be too good to be true. No, they were like, see, I told you so. Back in 2020, though, it was the left. It was the George Floyd riots after George Floyd's death and conversations about institutional racism and systemic racism in this country. And lo and behold, a study comes out. Here's the headline from CNN: Black newborns more likely to die when looked after by white doctors. Here's the Washington Post: mortality rate for black babies is cut dramatically when black doctors care for them after birth, researchers say. Here's the headline from The Guardian: black babies more likely to survive when cared for by black doctors, U.S. study says. Business Insider: black babies are 3 times more likely to die when cared for by white doctors. Their mortality rate plunges with black doctors. This research study from 2020 was cited by Ketanji Brown Jackson, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, in a dissent just last year. Guess what? It turns out the study was so deeply flawed as to be statistically insignificant and meaningless. Do you want the actual data? Or do you want to believe? If you are committed to the narrative of racial injustice in this country, do you want to believe that black babies are more likely to die when overseen by a white doctor? Do you want to believe it, or do you want the truth? Because the truth is that black babies do die disproportionately in the care of white doctors, but the catch makes it statistically meaningless. The catch is that there are more black babies when born in crisis pregnancies that are high risk, born prematurely, are placed into neonatal units. Neonatal units tend to overwhelmingly be manned by white doctors, and a child born prematurely has a higher rate of death, particularly with other abnormalities, and those children die at a higher rate. And disproportionately, the doctors in crisis neonatal units and neonatal ICU units are white. Therefore, if a black child gets put in a neonatal ICU unit, the odds are that doctor's white, and if that child dies, it's attributed to, well, the white doctor didn't care for the black child. That's what's actually happening here, is when you factor in crisis pregnancies and neonatal ICU, there's actually no discrepancy. So a black baby overseen by a white doctor and a black baby overseen by a black doctor in a hospital have equal chances of living or dying. When you get into a neonatal ICU unit, overwhelmingly and disproportionately, the doctors in charge are white, not because of racism, but because of doctor interest choices, things like that. Overwhelmingly, white doctors are in charge of neonatal ICU units. There are more of them. They've been there longer. They have greater expertise, and children in neonatal ICU units have a higher chance of dying than children who are not in neonatal ICU units, and black children there versus white children there. Oftentimes what happens is a black child from the inner city, there are other systemic problems related to that birth, giving rise to the kid being in neonatal ICU. There's no racism there. It's health of the mother, health of the child. That's it. There's no racism. It has nothing to do with racism. When you take neonatal ICU out of the equation, it's a wash. But the study didn't bring that up. And it was cited by Ketanji Brown Jackson in a Supreme Court case. And now a new analysis of the same data controlling for the impact of low birth weights and neonatal ICU finds that, quote, estimated racial concordance effect is substantially weakened and often becomes statistically insignificant. Now, there's another study that just came out. Let's see if this one confirms the priors of the left. 1 out of every 15 American adults has been at a mass shooting, according to the University of Colorado. 1 in 15 adults. 1 in 15. Now, that would suggest if 1 in 15 Americans were at a mass shooting, we're talking 17.4 million Americans. They have, you should know, given the data as 4 shots fired, or 4 people shot, not killed, but 4 people shot. But also, they used an online survey method. They didn't actually do real statistical sampling. They used online survey methods of self-reporting of people who claimed that they were in or around the vicinity of a shooting, who may or may not have been, and they self-selected. So there's no way to verify the person's claim is real. And among the methodological flaws, you get to 1 in 15 U.S. adults, which is most likely not true. And hey, guess what? There's another study out now, an unusual report the U.S. Catholic bishops have come out with, and some liberal evangelical groups claiming 1 in 12 Christians live in households that could be impacted by Trump's mass deportation plans. Friends, all I'm saying is be a little skeptical of these stories. We know that the report from 2020 that came after George Floyd about black babies in hospitals is now thoroughly discredited. Should we not also wonder about these reports coming out very quickly about mass gun violence when we know that it was self-selected survey data based on online surveys, that might be a little suspect? Or now one that suddenly says 1 in 12 Christians, 1 in 5 Catholics might be in households affected by Trump deportation plans. All I'm saying is when things come out like this in the heat of the moment, and they verify the prejudices of one side or the other, even the Chelsea Clinton vacation home in the Caribbean story, maybe be skeptical of it instead of just treating it at face value as if it's real.